drier overnight. That doesn't mean it's going to be completely calm and dry tomorrow. There will still be a few showers around, but many of us will see a little bit more in the way of sunshine. It's been a boisterous day thanks to this area of low pressure. Still very windy out there across parts of the south where the isobars are particularly close together, but it is starting to ease down through the night. Still some heavy downpours to come across Northern Ireland, southern Scotland and northern England, and move back into North Wales later in the night as well. And a few showers keep going across Devon, Cornwall and Somerset, but many other areas will become drier. The wind's still fairly brisk, but coming generally a few notches down compared to today's very lively gusts. Temperatures start Tuesday about 10 or 11 Celsius. There will still be showers feeding into northern Scotland on a fairly brisk wind, but much of central and eastern Scotland having a fine sunny start to Tuesday. Much of Northern Ireland as well, but I suspect along the north coast staying fairly cloudy here. There's a line of thicker cloud and some showers that are going to feed across the Irish Sea into northwest England too, and we'll still have one or two scattered showers whizzing across southwest England. They will be moving through because the breeze will remain fairly brisk, and so we'll continue to see that zone of cloudier weather over southwest Scotland and northern England, provide a few showers that may get over the Pennines into the afternoon. One or two scattered showers continue over northern Scotland, but generally the east coast of Scotland, much of the Midlands and much of eastern England, dry and bright with some sunny spells. Winds lighter than today as well, and so feeling warmer with temperatures high teens, low 20s. It doesn't last. Another area of low pressure out here spills more wet and windy weather across the country during Tuesday night. It tries to clear through the course of Wednesday, but the dull, damp weather may linger across the south and northern Scotland. But it should cheer up for Northern Ireland and northern England. Going to stay blustery, however, through Wednesday, with more showery rain to come through the week.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's our biggest Great British giveaway to date. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primera motorhome. This 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas and has all of the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that any adventures you take in your new motorhome are taken in style. For a chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk
No,
now?
that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, this chap made a good start. No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good evening. It's me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, on State of the Nation tonight. Sir Keir Starmer is one crisis away from being out. Will Andy Burnham be parachuted in? This isn't just politics, it's constitutional. A new Prime Minister needs a mandate from the people. Any attempt to crown a leader without one challenges democracy itself. And tonight...
The Conservative Party is over. Over as a national party. Over as the principal opposition to the left.
The Reform Party announced its latest defection today as shadow former Work and Pensions Minister Danny Kruger crossed, or at least moved crabwise across the floor to join Nigel Farage's party. Mr Kruger declared reform is the new torch of conservatism. Can the Tories make a resurgence? Also tonight...
This is a letter from His Majesty the King. It's an invitation for a second state visit. This is really special.
President Trump will arrive in the UK tomorrow for an unprecedented second state visit for an American, while the King will entertain him at Windsor Castle, and scandal over Lord Mandelson's Epstein links engulf the Prime Minister. What can we expect from the visit? And the Royal Yachting Association says man overboard is offensive, silly old geese, proposing person in water in a bid to be more inclusive to women and non-binary people. Some of them think they're cats anyway. And a new psychology study finds longer words make apologies sound stronger. So does language matter? State of the Nation starts now. To be joined by my most intellectual panel, the former Conservative MP and Minister, Sir John Redwood, and the former Labour MP, Stephen Pound. As always, I want to know your views, mailmog@gbnews.com. But now, it's your favourite time of the day, the News Bulletin with Aaron Armstrong.
Jacob, thank you very much. Indeed, let's get you up to date with our latest news headlines. We do start with politics. Sir Keir Starmer says, had he known the full facts about Peter Mandelson's relationship with the paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, he'd never have made him ambassador to the US. Sir Keir publicly backed the Labour peer at Prime Minister's questions on Wednesday, only to sack him the following day. Sir Keir insists, though, Lord Mandelson was thoroughly vetted before being given the job.
I knew of his association with Epstein, but had I known then what I know now, I'd have never appointed him. Because what emerged last week were emails, Bloomberg emails, which showed that the nature and extent of the relationship that Peter Mandelson had with Epstein was far different to what I had understood to be the position when I appointed him.
While one of the Prime Minister's top aides has been forced to resign over the emergence of sexually explicit messages about the Labour MP Diane Abbott, Paul Ovenden has stepped down as Director of Strategy after what Number 10 has said were appalling and unacceptable exchanges written in 2017. Danny Kruger, the Member of Parliament for East Wiltshire, has defected to Reform UK from the Conservatives. He becomes the first shadow Cabinet Minister and first sitting Tory MP to defect to the party. Mr Kruger says reform has the vision the country needs and the Tories are over. Constance Martin and Mark Gordon have each been jailed for 14 years over the death of their newborn baby Victoria. She was found dead in Brighton in 2023 after the pair went on the run for 2 months to get away from social services after their 4 other children were taken into care. Passing sentence, Judge Mark Lucraft KC said the pair had thought only of themselves and showed no genuine remorse across their 2 trials. Gordon will serve a further 4 years on extended licence. 8 people have been charged after disorder broke out during protests in central London at the weekend. 26 officers were injured and 24 people arrested at the Unite the Kingdom march, organised by Tommy Robinson and attended by around 150,000 people. The Met Police has also issued photos of 11 other people it's trying to trace in relation to the disorder. The FBI says DNA on a towel wrapped around the suspected gun used to kill Charlie Kirk has been matched to the suspect in custody. The Bureau's director, Kash Patel, has also revealed the alleged killer wrote a note indicating he was going to take out the Conservative activist before he shot him dead. People today have been paying their respects to Charlie Kirk at a memorial near Utah Valley University, where he was fatally shot on Wednesday. Finally, the Duchess of Kent's coffin has been taken to Westminster Cathedral ahead of her funeral tomorrow. The hearse, accompanied by the sound of a lone bagpiper as it left Kensington Palace. And the coffin arrived at the cathedral a short time later. The Duchess, who died earlier this month at the age of 92, was a devout Catholic. The King and Queen will be in attendance, along with many other members of the royal family. That's it for the moment. I'll be back with more at 9. Now it's back over to Jacob.
Welcome back to State of the Nation. Sir Keir Starmer is down to his last wicket in the worst batting collapse since England versus Australia in Adelaide in 2006, when 9 wickets fell for a mere 60 runs. The media are asking, will Andy Burnham stage a coup, or will Wes Streeting aim for number 10? Or will the Prime Minister Starmer himself just throw in the towel and step aside? Whatever happens, this government lacks energy and drive. Starmer is in office, but not in power. Questions over Lord Mandelson linger. It now looks as if Keir Starmer knew or ought to have known more before Prime Minister's questions last Wednesday, and is covering up, as so often the cover-up causes the greatest damage. But this is more than personality politics. It's constitutional. I've argued as far back as 2010 that a new Prime Minister needs a new mandate. One way that it was beginning to evolve that the electorate seemed to want, and that was that if a Prime Minister resigned partway through a Parliament, that should lead to a general election. When I knocked on doors in North East Somerset, people didn't say to me that they wanted fixed-term parliaments or AV or any of that. They asked who had elected him to be Prime Minister. And although the Constitution is clear that we can change Prime Minister as often as Her Majesty sees fit, the mood of the country is for that constitutional evolution. The reason I quote that speech is not a sort of mad, egotistical trip. It is because I want to show to you, the viewers, that this isn't something I've come up with opportunistically because Keir Starmer's in trouble. It's something that I think is a fundamental evolution of the British system. We have evolved into a more presidential one, and voters' choice on their leader should matter, that it's become fundamental to how we elect people. And this started, really, it became very clear with Gordon Brown's refusal to call an early election in 2007, which then undermined him. And then in 2022, after Boris Johnson resigned, Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak struggled to govern because they both lacked a popular mandate. The Prime Minister's legitimacy comes from the people, not a cabal in Parliament. So here is Andy Burnham's reported plan: enter Parliament by a friendly seat or one vacated by an incumbent member, be hailed as Labour's hero and assume the leadership. This is a fantasy. The public will not tolerate someone parachuted in as Prime Minister without a national mandate, and nor should they. Any by-election would ultimately be a referendum on Labour and on democracy, and voters would almost certainly reject both the party for its current incompetence and for the attempted stitch-up. So if Keir Starmer went without a general election following, Labour would then be governing without legitimacy. A new leader, parachuted in, Andy Burnham or otherwise, faces the same problem Rishi Sunak faced: a majority but no mandate and therefore no ability to govern. MPs might try ignoring them, but the public would resent them, and governing then becomes almost impossible. Leaders matter, mandates matter, and any attempt to bypass the public in choosing a new Prime Minister is not just politically risky, it's a challenge to democracy. As ever, let me know what you think, mailmog@gbnews.com. Well, I'm now delighted to be joined by the journalist and broadcaster, Kai Wilshaw, along with my most intellectual panel. Kai, thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
I'm very interested in this idea of our constitutional evolution, and that you're already slightly seeing this with Labour, that they've got a huge majority, but a very limited mandate because the share of the vote was so low. And although this shouldn't matter, technically and constitutionally, in reality it does, because MPs sitting on majorities of 1,000 aren't willing to vote for unpopular things. And if they were to go a step further and try and have a new leader, then this government wouldn't be able to do anything.
Yes, I think it's a really interesting position that the Labour Party finds itself in. Not only was the last election quite a broad coalition, but with a very shallow level of support for that government, it was also an election where clearly people voted for change. And actually, I think what they wanted was quite radical change from what we saw in the previous governments. But equally, Keir Starmer as an individual and as a leader, he's not a change candidate. He's not a radical, in his bones. What he was a sort of stability, a sort of technocrat figure. So that's somebody who's actually almost constitutionally incapable of delivering a big change. And so people are disappointed because of that sort of difference between maybe what they expected delivery to be and the individual that they put in charge of that change.
And he hasn't even managed the routine competence bit. So they didn't get either the change or the competence, and that leads the government to be in a position it is now with very little support. And when the crises hit, it's fascinating, no one's going out to defend them at the moment, are they?
No. I have a bit of sympathy for the line that Downing Street successfully managed to use to keep their MPs in line for the last year, which was stay the course. We have 5 years. And some of the changes we're making now, quite boring changes that you can't really sell to the electorate, perhaps, will bear fruit in 4 years, 5 years' time. Now the MPs are growing restless, and obviously the series of events that have buffeted the government, as well as the prospect of the May elections, which, looking at the polling at the minute, look to be disastrous for both Labour and the Tories, means that they're getting quite antsy, as they say, right? And so we're going to see them sort of speaking out and maybe looking at other leadership candidates. Whether or not they'll take the plunge, I'm not sure.
And my experience in government is that once the civil service and the machinery begins to think that you're not going to last the course, things stop happening. Yeah. And so, yes, you say to your backbenchers, wait 3 or 4 years. There's no point in waiting 3 or 4 years now because absolutely nothing's going to happen.
Yes, and of course then you'll have a parliamentary Labour Party that's increasingly fractious, at war with itself. I've been talking to MPs throughout the summer, including one who's just been made a minister, who was saying, I'm going to be speaking out against the wealth tax. And then you have others, campaigning for the deputy leadership on the basis of a wealth tax. They didn't get through. But you're going to start seeing those big issues where some want to be more radical and others are going to completely argue against them. The factions between the left and the right really come out into the open in a way that it wasn't before in the next few months.
Stephen, let me bring you in, because you were obviously an MP whilst Tony Blair was Prime Minister. Tony Blair was able to keep the Parliamentary Labour Party together. He was able to govern effectively for really a long time. What was his magic that Starmer doesn't have? Was he just more competent?
Well, it wasn't the old sitting around in the tea room and chatting to everybody, because he didn't spend a great deal of time doing that. What he did was he had extraordinary powers of oratory. A great many of us went into that awful debate back in March 2003, the Iraq debate, absolutely convinced that we couldn't possibly go into this adventure with George Bush. He swung the House that night, and it was most extraordinary. I mean, I will regret my vote till my dying day. However, on that particular day, it was most extraordinary, and Anne Cleward made this incredible speech. So he had that. But I think, above all, you had the feeling that we were going somewhere, that there was actually a collective, a cohesive viewpoint, and we're actually heading in a direction. Now, Gordon Brown used to love pulling the rabbits out of the hat, do you remember? And he'd come up with some marvellous thing, break the chains of debt, or give the plan, give the envelope of the business with where you actually got tax relief on charity donations. Great things like that. We always felt that something was actually going on. But on your substantive point, Jacob, it wasn't that long ago, it was about 100 years ago. Anybody who was appointed as a minister had to have a by-election.
Yes.
So, in other words, if you'd got a new Chancellor of the Exchequer or Chief Secretary of the Treasury, they'd have to have a by-election so that they'd have a mandate. I think the logic of actually changing, not changing the Prime Minister without a national mandate, also should apply to people across the floor. And I've got nothing against Danny Kruger or
well, we might come on to that later.
But the idea that if you're elected in one party and you then cross the floor, should there not be a by-election then?
Well, of course there should be, and I completely agree with the mandate doctrine, and I, like Jacob, thought that Boris should have carried on, and I thought it was wrong to depose him in the way they did, because he definitely had a big popular personal vote as well as a party vote, and he was going through wobbles, but they were things that with goodwill, the party could have carried him through. But I think what we see with this government is two big things have gone disastrously wrong. The first is about the only memorable pledge they made to a lot of people who voted for them as well as for Tories, was we're going to smash the gangs, which was their way of saying stop the small boats. And it's gone completely in the opposite direction in a catastrophic way. And they actually took out some of the better things the Conservatives have started to do. And then, of course, the economy has gone hopelessly wrong. When they were going to be the great growth party, they inherited an economy which at last, after COVID wobbles, was growing the fastest in the G7 for the first half of 24, and it got inflation down to 2. And now we have inflation almost doubled, and we've got growth virtually non-existent. And I don't think you can make progress as a government, even with a big majority, if you really mess up the economy.
And they've got another scandal today that some advisor to Keir Starmer was rude about Diane Abbott. Can he keep on surviving these drip of scandals involving people close to him, or is he now really teetering on the edge?
I think it's an interesting point because, in all honesty, he is not a lucky prime minister. And, you know, Napoleon said, give me lucky generals. I mean, he's been very...
You make your own luck.
Well, to a certain extent. I think the Mandelson thing, the awful thing about the Peter Mandelson thing is he was a very good trade and industry secretary. He was a very, very good Northern Ireland secretary. And by all accounts, he was a pretty good ambassador. And when you consider, what has he actually done?
He wasn't a good ambassador.
Well, I'm sorry, he managed... Look at the trade
deal was rotten. I mean, it's wiping out our ethanol industry. Why do you like that?
Well, the ethanol industry, I think it's, 1,100 people in Hull. But, I mean, you look at the rest of the country, I mean, obviously one thinks about it. But look, the question is, your point, is it the drip? Does it become a point where it's almost the daily scandal? What's going on? Now, other parties have had this, and I point no fingers at other parties, but, you know, it's happened to a lot of parties.
It is quite common, and I don't see how Labour get rid of him. It's not easy, is it?
Let me come back to you, because it does seem to be in the situation that parties in when they've been in office for 10 years, not for 1 year.
Yes.
But there is the stench of decay about Starmer at the moment. Do you think he can survive up to and beyond May?
I think he'll survive up until May. Yes, there's blood in the water, right? And there are current ministers who are saying openly that he needs to go. But I think they'll come to their senses when they realise the prevailing facts are with them still. The fact that they have a thumping majority, the fact that actually disunity will make the elections even worse when they're looking, you know, I was talking to a key leader in Welsh Labour recently who just can't even see a future for Labour. Maybe they'll be brought in a confidence to supply with Plaid, but otherwise it's Reform and the Tories for her. And so once they come up to the locals, they realise that really this disunity has to stop and things will start to calm down a bit, unless, of course, we see other really big scandals emerge.
Well, the Labour Party doesn't do regicide. We've never, ever thrown one of our leaders
Not even Lansbury, and he wasn't much. Anyway, thank you very much to Kai and
I'm happy to talk about George Lansbury.
We'll come back later, and his wonderful daughter or granddaughter. Anyway, coming up in a moment.
The Conservative Party is over. Over as a national party. Over as the principal opposition to the left.
The Reform Party announced its latest defection today as shadow former Work and Pensions Minister Danny Kruger crossed, or at least moved crabwise across the floor to join Nigel Farage's party. Mr Kruger declared Reform is the new torch of conservatism. But can the Tories make a resurgence?
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
What on earth is going on at our university? So Professor Stephen Greer had worked for the University of Bristol for 36 years when his career was halted after a false accusation of Islamophobia. The issue arose when Greer taught about the Charlie Hebdo attacks during a human rights module, and a student who didn't actually attend the course complained. Well, I'm delighted now to be joined by Stephen Greer himself to explain what happened. Stephen, thank you very much. Tremendous to have you on the show. Can you just explain the circumstances that led up to you being accused of Islamophobia, please?
Well, out of the blue, or almost out of the blue, I received a complaint about a module I'd been teaching on a unit, a human rights unit, entitled Islam, China and the Far East, for nearly 15 years without incident, which included the increasing critical literature about human rights issues in Islam, China and the Far East. And my principally, as I said, the principal complaint, it did include a complaint about Charlie Hebdo, but the principal complaint was about the fact that I had referred students to the authoritative academic literature. And the student who complained was the president of BRISOC, the University of Bristol Islamic Society, who was a medical student who'd not attended any of the course himself, and he claimed to be acting on behalf of anonymous students. And there were all kinds of other procedural irregularities in the complaint, but the university decided to entertain it anyway. Okay. And I was exonerated after a 5-month inquiry. Then the university said, well, they were publicly announced, they took the module off the syllabus.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back, where we're talking about the Starmer drama, and the mailmogs have come steaming in. Peter says, Labour MPs aren't turkeys voting for Christmas. They have a massive majority. They won't back a no-confidence vote if they're going to lose their jobs. You've got them to 2029. And Jill says, Starmer started off badly. His greed for tax-free freebies has not been forgotten, and now it's getting worse. While David says, well done, Somerset, winning last night. Thank you very much. Yes, the 2020 champion county. So the Reform Party announced its latest defection today as shadow former Work and Pensions Minister Danny Kruger crossed the floor to join Nigel Farage's party. In a press conference, Mr Kruger declared reform is the new torch of conservatism. Here's what he said this morning.
The Conservative Party is over. Over as a national party. Over as the principal opposition to the left. But I'm not despondent, because conservatism is not over. It's never been needed more, and actually it's never been more vibrant. Because the failure of the Conservative Party has created space for an alternative.
Mr Kruger's Conservative colleagues expressed regret at his decision, and the party leader, Kemi Badenoch, has insisted she will not be distracted from her course by the announcement. Here's what she told GB News earlier today.
Danny has made his case very clear that this is not about me. I can't be distracted by that, and I'm not going to get blown off course by these sorts of incidents. I know that this is the sort of thing that is going to happen while a party is changing. I am making sure that people understand what Conservative values are.
Danny Kruger's defection is the latest in a series of high-profile defections from the Conservatives to Reform, leading many to believe the Tory party is finished. But is it? Can the Tories make a comeback? Well, I'm joined now by the leader of Kent County Council Reform's Lyndon Kemkeran. Lyndon, many thanks for joining me, and congratulations on taking over Kent, a fine cricketing county. Do you want to have a lot of superannuated Tories joining Reform, or are you hoping to get new and fresher people?
Well, I think, good evening, by the way, Jacob, thank you for having me. I think if somebody of the calibre and the quality of Danny Kruger wishes to come over to Reform, then we should, of course, welcome them with open arms. I think Danny Kruger is a very rare species of politician. He is somebody who I've admired for a long time. He is unashamedly Christian in his outlook. He is unashamedly centre-right. He is what I would call a true Conservative. And as he said, there is only one place now for people who view themselves as having true Conservative values, and that is, of course, not the Conservative Party. It is Reform UK. So I think he's done exactly the right thing, and I think Nigel was exactly right to give him the big welcome that we saw today.
And do you think Danny should stand in a by-election, having switched party, that he needs a reinforced mandate from his voters who voted for him on one ticket and have now got him on another? Because, of course, when UKIP got a couple of Tories, they both stood in by-elections.
Look, I think things have changed a lot since the UKIP Tory days. I think now people understand that the Conservative Party is no longer the party that it was. And I think they also understand that Reform UK is the natural home for people like Danny, like myself, who feel that they haven't really left the Conservative Party, but the Conservative Party has rather left them. So I think actually no, because what Danny's done, he's not had a massive change of heart on what he believes in. His beliefs haven't changed. All he's done is found a new and quite proper home for his beliefs. So no, I don't believe in his case a by-election is really necessary.
One of the things he said, which I agree with, is that there's only really space for one right-wing party. And I think that in a first-past-the-post system, this is self-evidently true. If we want conservatism to succeed, which again is what Danny's been arguing for, do you think we should reunite the right? And how would you suggest we do that?
Well, I think the sensible thing would have been for the Conservatives to realise which way the wind was blowing after they lost so catastrophically back in 2024. That would have been the sensible time to maybe have a civilised conversation with Nigel Farage, who, of course, came back out of semi-retirement to lead Reform UK. Thank goodness he did. That would have been a really good time for them to have a bit of a reality check and realise the direction that things were going to go in. I could see it quite clearly. It seems the Conservative Party could not or would not, or didn't want to realise. That was the first mistake. The second mistake, of course, was when Kemi Badenoch did become elected leader of the Conservatives last year. She should have come out swinging. You know, that was her opportunity to save her party. She needed to come out absolutely ready for the fight. She should have remembered what it meant to be a Conservative. She should have immediately tried to take the party back to the centre-right ground where it quite rightly belongs. Instead, she decided that she would have to go and hibernate for 2 years, like a bear in a cave, while she went back to first principles, whatever they are, and worked out what it meant to be a Conservative. I mean, a true Conservative doesn't need 2 years to work out policies and principles. It's just there. It's automatic.
All right, Lyndon, thank you very much for joining me. I wish you every success in Kent, and I hope you'll get rid of 20-mile-an-hour speed limits whilst you're at it. Back the motorist. Anyway, thank you. Now let me go to my panel. First of all, John, I want to come to you. Was Kemi wrong not to get on with it faster? And is this why the space has been created for people like Danny to go off and say, look, only Reform is being serious about being conservatism, and therefore I'm going to go with them?
No, I don't think Kemi was wrong, and I don't think it would have made any difference to Danny's reasons for going. I think Kemi was right to say there's no point in the Conservatives writing a manifesto for 28-29, and in all probability we're going long because of the state of the Labour Party. And I think she's right that the Conservatives have to come up with a very different proposition to the one they offered that was so badly rejected in 24. And that will take time to make it work. And I think she's now saying, well, the contrast between Reform and Conservatives is Reform got some great headline-grabbing offers, and they don't have any past baggage because they haven't yet governed anything. We'll find out how well they govern Kent soon. Whereas the Conservatives have got a lot of baggage, so she needs to have dumped the things that didn't work and then show that the party's been through a process taking 2 or 3 years maybe to say, not only have we dumped what we got wrong on migration and the economy last time round, but we've now got a sensible set of propositions that we believe in and you can believe in. It was the only way she could do it. And as she said today, she's bound to lose some people on that journey. Ambitious people are offered things by Reform. They think it looks more exciting. They see at least temporary momentum in the polls, so they go. But I take your view. I don't think Reform is going to completely crush the Conservative Party. And that at some point there will have to be an accommodation, but it may be after an election.
And the key is to unite the right, that we want a capital and small c Conservative government after the next election, and that means we all work together one way or another.
Yes, much better if we can. I don't think there's any immediate chance of Reform wanting to do a deal with the Conservatives because they think they're doing rather well at the moment, and they are in polling terms and elections. If that starts to change, then maybe there'll be more scope. But I think there'll be lots of informal working together, and there will be some coming together of the policy positions. I think Reform will copy some of the detail of the Conservatives based on the experience of the Conservative government. And I think Conservatives will capture some more of the eye-catching ones that they missed out on in the last 5 years in government.
Stephen, let me bring you in. Is this the SDP? Is reform the SDP? It's got some high-level and exciting people, but there's no substance beneath it. That it's a flash in the pan, and
I think it's a bit more than a flash in the pan. But I mean, the old quotation about the United Kingdom is essentially a conservative country that occasionally votes Labour. I mean, I think there is a conservative undercurrent in this country. Now, the problem is that the left has been bedeviled by years by the fact that we split into all these little groups hating each other far more than we hate the Conservatives, although we do try to hate the Conservatives at every opportunity. However, you've now got Ben Habib's piece, you've got Tommy Robinson's piece, you've got the people on the right moving further and further. And I think you end up with a situation as we have in Northern Ireland, where you get one party will then be outflanked and outflanked and outflanked. But let's not forget that Nigel Farage has done this before. He didn't stand UKIP candidates against Conservatives in Boris Johnson's landslide. And one of the reasons why Boris got that landslide was because either the Tories or UKIP had a clear run. So he's perfectly capable of doing it again. The problem is there are some people in Reform who actually genuinely think that they can strangle the Conservative Party. Now, if the reality is the Conservative Party is not going to disappear.
All right, I want to ask both of you one word answer. Should there be a by-election?
Yes.
No.
OK, well, there we go. The left is on the side of the right, and on the right... Anyway, it's all getting very complicated. Thank you very much earlier to Lyndon and, of course, to my panel in a moment.
This is a letter from His Majesty the King. It's an invitation for a second state visit. This is really special.
This is pretty
the American President, Donald Trump, will arrive in the UK tomorrow for an American to have an unprecedented second state visit, while the King will entertain him at Windsor Castle, and scandal over Lord Mandelson's Epstein links engulfs the Prime Minister. What can we expect from this visit?
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews travel destinations forecast.
Hello, well there's plenty of sunshine across Europe. There are a few showers around, but otherwise it's feeling very warm out there. A bit breezy across parts of Madeira and the Canary Islands, but across much of Portugal, Spain, France, Italy, lengthy sunny skies. And across Greece as well, not doing too bad. There are just a few showers towards the north of that, but otherwise a lot of sunshine on offer, temperatures up to 34 degrees.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GBNews travel destinations forecast.
Good evening. Things are turning a bit calmer and a bit drier overnight. So it doesn't mean it's going to be completely calm and dry tomorrow. There will still be a few showers around, but many of us will see a little bit more in the way of sunshine. It's been a boisterous day thanks to this area of low pressure. Still very windy out there across parts of the south where the isobars are particularly close together, but it is starting to ease down through the night. Still some heavy downpours to come across Northern Ireland, southern Scotland and northern England, and move back into North Wales later in the night as well. And a few showers keep going across Devon, Cornwall and Somerset. But many other areas will become drier. The wind's still fairly brisk, but coming generally a few notches down compared to today's very lively gusts. Temperatures start Tuesday about 10 or 11 Celsius. There will still be showers feeding into northern Scotland on a fairly brisk wind, but much of central and eastern Scotland having a fine sunny start to Tuesday. Much of Northern Ireland as well, but I suspect along the north coast staying fairly cloudy here. There's a line of thicker cloud and some showers that are going to feed across the Irish Sea into northwest England too, and we'll still have one or two scattered showers whizzing across southwest England. They will be moving through because the breeze will remain fairly brisk, and so we'll continue to see that zone of cloudier weather over southwest Scotland and northern England, provide a few showers that may get over the Pennines into the afternoon. One or two scattered showers continue over northern Scotland, but generally the east coast of Scotland, much of the Midlands and much of eastern England, dry and bright with some sunny spells. Winds lighter than today as well, and so feeling warmer with temperatures high teens, low 20s. It doesn't last. Another area of low pressure out here spills more wet and windy weather across the country during Tuesday night. It tries to clear through the course of Wednesday, but the dull, damp weather may linger across the south and northern Scotland. But it should cheer up for Northern Ireland and northern England. Going to stay blustery, however, through Wednesday with more showery rain to come through the week.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
President Donald Trump will arrive in England tomorrow for an historic second state visit. That is to say, historic for an American. It's the first time an American head of state has been accorded this honour. I think King Harold of Norway was always popping over for state visits. His first visit was at the invitation of the late Queen in 2019. The King will now host the American President and the American's First Lady at Windsor Castle on Wednesday and Thursday, while tomorrow he'll be met by the US Ambassador to the Court of St James, Warren Stevens. The President's visit comes as Britain's former ambassador to the United States, Lord Mandelson, was last week forced to resign over links to the notorious paedophile Jeffrey Epstein. The 3-day event is expected to be the largest security operation since the King's coronation. So what can we expect from President Trump's second state visit? I'm delighted to be joined by the chairman of Republicans Overseas, Greg Swenson, along with my most intellectual panel. Greg, very nice to see you. What can we expect tomorrow? Is there going to be fireworks? Is Donald Trump going to do some great deal with us? And
I kind of managed expectations, Jacob. I think there'll be a lot of pageantry, of course, and that's what the British do so well, as we saw, with the coronation and all the other great events of the last decade. So, I think it'll be more of that and less business. I'm sure they'll talk about trade. I'm sure they'll talk about the trade deal. I'm sure the president and the vice president might bring up some delicate subjects at some point, but not out of contempt, but out of caring about the UK. As you know, the president is quite fond of the UK, and
the president is a great Anglophile.
Oh, absolutely.
And I hope will be encouraging us in freedom of speech. But it's difficult to get the tone right, isn't it? Because although there's a great relationship between the US and the UK, neither side likes being told what to do by the other.
Yeah, especially when you can argue there's a big brother, little brother thing, just given the scale of the United States. And so, I know that's a risk. And I think that's why when J.D. Vance made his comments at Munich, he was quite careful to say, my friends in the UK. And we are. And that's, I think the special relationship is solid regardless of who is president and or prime minister. A couple of speed bumps during the Biden years, I thought, even maybe one or two in the Obama years. But during Trump's first term, again, he's very fond of the UK. I think this will be a great event.
And he's spending 2 nights at Windsor with the King. Now, drill, baby, drill is not the King's approach to green policy.
Yeah.
How do you think they'll manage to finesse that?
Well, I think the King has done a good job of, as King. If it was President Trump and Prince Charles, it might have been a little awkward. But yeah, drill baby drill is on, and I think that is liberating not only the energy sector in the United States, but the whole economy. And so, the fact that the Great Britain was energy independent 20 years ago, and now you're paying 5 times as much for energy, British businesses are. So
suffering. Yeah. And what about the most pressing issue, which is security and what's going on in Ukraine and Donald Trump's relationship with Putin, which seems to be a sort of on-off affair and hasn't achieved the peace that was promised?
Yeah, I think, look, the president, contrary to his critics, is a diplomat, and he's pretty good at it. He's basically stopped 5 or 6 armed conflicts since he took office only 8 months ago, and hasn't worked out with Putin, but he's not afraid to use diplomacy. So there's a right time to be critical, and there's a right time to reach out, which he did in Alaska. I think I'm sure that'll be on the agenda, with both the president and vice president and Marco Rubio and the whole gang that's coming over. So yeah, I think it'll be definitely an
And will
agenda
we
item.
see any indication of the US reaffirming its commitment to security, or are we going to get more, come on, NATO needs to pull its weight more?
Well, I think that's been successful. So I don't think he's going to be encouraging too much on that, because we've got the commitment from anywhere from 3 to 5% for most of the countries. Every one of the countries in NATO has hit the 2% target. So this is a much improved NATO. He wanted a stronger NATO, and he's got it. Yeah.
Stephen, to be fair to Keir Starmer, this is his one area of greatest success, isn't it? That he has managed to ingratiate himself with President Trump to the significant advantage of the United Kingdom.
Well, I couldn't disagree with a word of that. Where I could possibly disagree with Greg Svensson, who I have a lot of respect for, is when, I have to say, President Trump says he's actually managed to bring peace in 6 different conflicts. Well, no, he hasn't. I'm sorry. First of all, he's claimed to bring peace to the Congo. He reckons that he stopped the Indo-Pakistan war. He reckons he stopped Kosovo and Serbia. None of those are either anything to do with him or have actually moved from warfare to peace. I'm not sure. So Greg says he's a good diplomat. I don't know. I think he's certainly had some great achievements without a shadow of a doubt. But for me, the overwhelming problem we have with Donald Trump is the fact that he's now created a new axis of upheaval when you actually saw Xi and Modi and Putin and North Korea and Lukashenko, all those people, that is a new anti-NATO bloc, the like of which we've never seen up before. And I think he has to be held partly responsible for that.
Well, I think that bloc existed prior to President Trump. I mean, I would have considered them, the axes of evil prior to the president. Yeah. What he tried to do is drive a wedge, or at least keep the relationship between Russia and China getting closer. That's why he was being diplomatic with Putin. He did not want to see that. Has it worked? Probably not so far, but it might.
John, let me bring you in. The royal family is sort of gold dust in international affairs. What point does it become Ruritanian when all we can do is have bands playing tunes, but we're not actually doing anything serious on the world stage?
I think it's wonderful background, and I'm delighted the President likes it, and lots of people like it. But you need a strong Prime Minister who then does some serious business in private, and then the two announce whatever they're jointly proud of. I mean, I hope, for example, the President and the Secretary of State in private will have another go about the disgraceful giving away of the Chagos Islands. And this is a crucial military base. And we don't want a non-nuclear Mauritius offering the Chinese fishing permits to send so-called fishing vessels very near to our crucial base.
But Donald Trump's in favour of the Chagos deal.
I'm not sure he is.
I don't know.
I think
point.
this is a case where President Trump is being too diplomatic, and I think he should take them on, and it'd save us a lot of money, and the British people would be on his side on that.
But he wants to keep Diego Garcia. It's crucial.
You're absolutely right, and we on the right were awfully disappointed with the Chagos deal. But what's interesting is someone asked me this a few weeks ago, and I said, well, he's not paying for it. And that's the way that the president thinks.
But he may be, because we may both be paying for it in security terms.
Absolutely.
Why take the risk when we both agree that China is
on the British
risk?
taxpayer?
But if he made an intervention now, it would be a very timely one, because the bill is back in the House of Commons on the 20th of October for its committee stage on the floor of the House, and it could be stopped. It doesn't have to happen. And you may say it's a British bill, but actually that money could otherwise go into NATO. It comes out of a budget for something.
It's a good point, and I really hope it happens. And that would be a fantastic surprise, if he brings that up, and there's real pressure on the government here to reject that. And so, good for him if he does. I'm crossing my fingers.
And I think the President has offered very good advice on how we need to get more of our own oil and gas out. And I would add the argument the President wouldn't use, which is you would have less world CO2 if we got our own gas out and burnt it, rather than all this LNG shipped halfway around the world. It's absolutely crazy. But on the other side, I want Starmer to say to the President, the trade deal still isn't good enough. There are still some raw edges which don't help either side.
And can you advise him to make sure his white tie fits at the state banquet this time?
Absolutely.
Good. That's the crucial point, that we need to make sure that happens.
The fashion police on Jacob Rees-Mogg.
And keep his hands off the Queen.
He needs to watch Downton Abbey to see how white ties should be worn properly. Anyway, thank you to Greg and my panel. In a moment, Oh, the silly old geese at the Royal Yachting Association have said that man overboard is offensive, proposing person in water in a bid to be more inclusive to women and non-binary people. And a new psychology study finds longer words make apologies sound stronger. So does language matter? And what happens when nuns go on the run?
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, just in case there are any snowflakes listening, which I doubt there are, this is my first, and I hope only, trigger warning. If you suffer from hippopotomonstrosis sequopedaliophobia, please press the mute button for the next few minutes. And when you see pictures of nuns, you may put the sound back on. As John Stuart Mill once said, language is the light of the mind. The Royal Yachting Association has issued inclusive language guidance stating man overboard is an offensive term. And the national governing body for sailing, established in 1875, has proposed replacing the term with person in water, aiming to honour and value women and non-binary people. But some non-binary people think they're cats. Anyway, within the sport. Other suggestions include replacing sportsmanship with sporting behaviour and mother duties, which even I think is quite an old-fashioned term, with cooking and cleaning duties. Meanwhile, a new study by the British Journal of Psychology concluded that longer words are better for statements of contrition, as it implies a more robust effort to make amends. So, does language matter? Well, I'm joined now by my most intellectual panel, the sesquipedalian former Conservative MP and Minister Sir John Redwood, and the polysyllabic former Labour MP Stephen Pound.
Well, you are the last word in sesquipedalianism. Jacob, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a quiz question that comes up from time to time in the viaduct in Hanwell. Who has the record for the longest word ever uttered on the floor of the House of Commons?
As recorded in Hansard, me, but a schoolchild came in for one of those debates they did and used some German name for a disease and got one that was twice as long. So mine's floxinochinihilipilification. But language matters, doesn't it? That if you start saying you can't say man overboard, you're actually making quite a political statement.
Well, of course, what we should say simply is body in the organ. Simple as that. There's a body in the organ. If I have to say, if you're struggling in the water, the last thing you want to say is, "Oh, can I say, just get your non-binary designation correct?" No, throw them a lifebelt. Actually get a rope down.
Get on with it. And organisations that spend time and money on this, although it seems very silly, I think it's had an effect on society. I think wokeism, the left-wingery that is implicit in that, comes from Tory's acceptance of saying chair rather than chairman, of saying person in the water rather than man overboard. And it's much more political than it sometimes seems.
Yeah, I think language matters a lot, and I think person in the water is absurd and a waste of money and time, and people are having fun debating it. But I think precision of language is a good thing. I mean, if a woman fell off a boat, surely we could just say woman in the water. That would add to the description, because people have got to get their eyes adjusted to what they're looking for. So I think it's a bit odd to say man in the water if a woman's fallen in the water, because you presumably saw her, which is why you're making the shout. But you don't want person in the water and to feel that you're going to be politically incorrect
but it's had a
if
lot
you say the wrong thing.
A lot of trouble in the trans debate where the NHS says people having babies rather than mothers. It is awful.
But that's
there's
all this
dangerous.
business. You go into hospital, I'm told, and you're asked as a man if you're pregnant.
Well, I think that's corrosive, because that actually leads on to some real problems about definition, and also the way that people are just bending over backwards, agonising. I mean, I just imagine if a woman is in the water and somebody shouts out man overboard, "Oh, you can't rescue me because you've inaccurately designated me." I'm sorry, no, I'm going to drown. I'm going to have the right name or I'm going to drown. It's ludicrous.
It's silly, but it's more political as well as being silly. And
it is extremely political, because it sets a standard of thought, and that's what really worries me.
And that's where political correctness has been dangerous and has endangered women, actually, where they've had men dressed up as women going into their changing rooms and things because you weren't allowed to say that they were different.
Well, and it's changed the whole view of crime, so that people think that they might be a criminal if they got slightly the wrong word because they were in a muddle or they hadn't thought carefully, or they just didn't agree with the particular wokish imposition. Whereas crimes, serious crimes, are violence and robbery and all that kind of thing, which we need to concentrate on.
And then on the apology, I've always thought the best apology is in the shortest words, because it sounds more sincere, and that if you make it elaborate and flowery, people don't believe you.
I think this study was of very few people. And if it was face-to-face, then I think your point is exactly right. I would imagine a study would then show that sincerity matters. And sincerity might be long words, it might be short words. I mean, I think the idea was that if you put together longer words, it meant you take more trouble. But I think you communicate an atmosphere of whether you're genuinely sorry. I mean, people want to know that you recognise the mistake and you're upset about it.
And that you're sorry for what has happened, not sorry for the offence that has been called, and all those weasel words that officials put into apologies.
I think there's absolutely no question at all. When I think of some of the language that we used, when I was a teenager, we used appalling languages, particularly some of the racist epithets that were common, but we've moved on from that. And I think instead of just saying we've actually arrived at a sensible place, we seem to be going searching, desperately, agonising to try to something more. It's like in Northern Ireland, people used to go 12 miles out of their way to be offended. But there's a marvellous MP called Colonel Bob Stewart. I saw sitting on the terrace one day with somebody sitting next to him, and I said, he said, "She's here to make sure I don't say anything." I said, "What? Say what?" He said, "Anything."
Anything, yes. A great man.
Well, he got into trouble.
And he did. And finally, I've stopped the sesquipedalian speakers for a moment, and finally nuns are on the run. 3 elderly sisters have staged the Great Escape, breaking out of a Catholic care home and back into their old Austrian convent. Sister Bernadette, 88, Sister Regina, 86, and Sister Rita, 82, say they were promised a home for life at the Schloss Goldenstein. So, with help from ex-students and a locksmith, they held the authorities to their word and forced their way in. Now they're running the convent on donations from fans, all the while posting Instagram videos to prove they're tougher than ever. The church bureaucrats yawn, boring, silly old fools, call them squatters. The nuns call it justice. And I call them absolutely marvellous. And I hope they win, and encourage you to have a look at their Instagram and see how marvellous they are.
There's none like him.
Oh, there's none like him. He always has to get the last word. That's all from me. Up next, it's the one and only Alex Armstrong standing in for Patrick Christie's. Alex, have you got any nuns on your show tonight?
None today.
Unfortunately, but what I do have is a bombshell whistleblower report that is really going to put the Mayor of London in some difficult waters. Trust me, there is nothing like it out there on the TV tonight. You are not going to want to miss it. I've also got that sensational defection to reform by a shadow minister from the Tories. We'll be digging into so much tonight on the show. I hope you can join us.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good evening. Things are turning a bit calmer and a bit drier overnight. That doesn't mean it's going to be completely calm and dry tomorrow. There will still be a few showers around, but many of us will see a little bit more in the way of sunshine. It's been a boisterous day thanks to this area of low pressure. Still very windy out there across parts of the south where the isobars are particularly close together, but it is starting to ease down through the night. Still some heavy downpours to come across Northern Ireland, southern Scotland and northern England, and move back into North Wales later in the night as well. And a few showers keep going across Devon, Cornwall and Somerset. But many other areas will become drier. The wind's still fairly brisk, but coming generally a few notches down compared to today's very lively gusts. Temperatures start Tuesday about 10 or 11 Celsius. There will still be showers feeding into northern Scotland on a fairly brisk wind, but much of central and eastern Scotland having a fine sunny start to Tuesday. Much of Northern Ireland as well, but I suspect along the north coast staying fairly cloudy here. There's a line of thicker cloud and some